From Atlanta,
where girls run this motherfucker.
it's the 9 Billion Names of Pod with Dan Bauman and Michael Reed. I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm a gentleman in all things.
So, let's talk about some stuff.
If you insist.
Hi.
And you do.
I do. We have a guest.
We do. I'd like to present to you the world, Ellaree Yeagley of Bleux Stockings Society.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Welcome.
And this is starting, I guess continuing a trend that we kind of started months back, but we're picking up again. And we're going local with some of the literary events and organizations here in Atlanta. We've already done Right Club.
That's true.
And talking about that in Tender Blood Sport. In future weeks, we'll be tackling Naked City and Scene and Song Missing, perhaps Debate, Solve for X, and maybe talking about Nately's.
Yeah, there's a really cool, what do you call it, a lit scene almost?
You call it the lit scene, I guess.
It is the lit scene.
With these events of live reading, which you would not think would draw anything. You know, if you just write that on paper and say, we're going to start a thing where people read, and you think in this day and age people would be...
Well, they think of it as like one of those ridiculous open mic things where people come up and go, I gave my love a cherry.
Yeah.
And they just want to throw up. This is more in a competition venue, and sometimes with added bells and whistles around it. But we're talking about Bleux Stockings Society. And Ellaree, tell us what it is.
Bleux Stockings Society is a monthly live literature event where we showcase the written work of cis women, trans women, and non-binary people.
And for those who go, what were all those terms? I don't understand. What's a cis? Explain that for the uninitiated.
Cis means that the sex that you were assigned at birth matches your gender. So I am a cis woman.
Assigned by God?
If that's what you choose to believe. Then
Assigned
yes.
by the hormone chromosome that kicked in at 6 weeks of gestation, and that what you got dealt with?
Sure.
Okay.
For me, it means I have a vagina and I am a woman.
Okay.
A trans woman is someone who was assigned male or was born with male genitalia but identifies as a woman.
Okay.
And non-binary just means that you don't fit within the gender binary. So that can be gender queer, that can be agender, that could be you go between both genders. It's kind of an umbrella term for many different things. I've
never heard that. It's really cool that there's that community is becoming more mainstream, or at least getting the recognition.
Or being known.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I never knew I was a cis male. I just thought.
Yeah,
I was.
I don't.
But I guess as you embrace other forms of sexuality or how you're want to be identified gender wise, you have to give a term for everything, and that makes sense. So this is it's basically for the ladies to have a place to go and read their original work. Is it all original work? Do they?
It's all original so far. We had one show where a woman who is a writer, she does work with a nonprofit where she gets members of the homeless community to do collaborative stories, and she read some of that. But generally, it's 100% original work.
Excellent. And how long have you guys been going?
Gosh, well, we're only on our third show. I don't know. I guess since January. January was our first show.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how was the first couple of shows received? How did they go? What was the vibe like?
Vibe was great. The first show was amazing. I laughed. I cried. People were hooting and hollering in the audience, snapping their fingers. The work was incredible. I mean, the combined brain power in that room was pretty intense. We had a wonderful lineup. It was great. And the second show was good, too. We had more people on stage who had never read on stage before at the second show, which is kind of part of the goal here.
It's to give a safe space for women to read their stuff. Tell us more about the thought behind that.
Well, the safe space thing, and it's been tricky because we've had some pushback on the idea of the safe space. But
the term or the concept of it.
The concept in general.
Well, basically the exclusion of men.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? Safe space, is that what it is? That it's all only women?
For us, yes. I mean, it can mean for any marginalized group can have a safe space that excludes any kind of anything
Right.
that they find oppressive. For us, it's just no men, no cis men, no men identifying as men
okay.
allowed. Which is why we're open to trans women and non-binary people.
Right.
But mostly anyone who's experienced misogyny, we just want to give them a place where patriarchal pressure is not going to be pushing down on them. When Amy and I were first talking about the show, it occurred to me that I had no idea what I would write if I was writing for an audience of just women. And it made me think...
And tell us real quick, your partner in Blue Stockings.
Oh, yeah, Amy Stufflebeam. This was actually... and the show was her idea. She came to me and said, man, we don't... it's kind of a boys' club. We love all the boys involved.
Right.
But there's
boys ruin everything.
Nah, I mean...
Oh, we're the
It's
worst.
just-
Make no mistake. We are the worst. Pick any war. Us.
I think this was more of a... something that's a structural issue, like a societal structural issue, not something that's down to individuals that we know. We thought, wouldn't it be great to have a place where people could come and talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, write whatever they wanted to write about, and not be worried about how it was going to be received. And also a place where they knew that they could get on stage. We wanted to... we have a system set in place where we curate the shows based on what people have written, just to keep them thematically cohesive. But if you don't get on stage the first or the second time, you're guaranteed a spot at the next show.
Okay.
So, I mean, we really want people to have opportunities to get on stage, because you don't get better reading in public unless you practice.
Yep.
Right.
And some of these the better known shows in town, it's not that you wouldn't. It's not that they would never put you on stage. It's just so intimidating.
Right. You're going up against, in some cases going up against or reading in the same program with
Right.
people that do this, in some cases, for a living.
Right.
Going up against someone like Teresa Davis, who was, she commands the stage, and
Absolutely.
and you need to get better before you go up against her. Guys, girls, everybody, because she takes over the stage. So in the case of Blue Stockings, the participants or the wannabe participants will submit the work in advance, and you'll curate and go, you, and here's our show. Is that how it works?
Yeah. What is the format? Like, how are you structured?
We put in we post. We have a private group and a public group. The private group is also just for cis women, trans women, and non-binary people. That's where we post the prompts. We'll post a prompt as far in advance as we can. And we're getting better about that.
Now, for the uninitiated, explain to them what a prompt is for non-writers, non-performer types.
Oh, the prompt is just it's the theme for the show, and it's a jumping off point. You have to hit on the theme in some way. It can be obliquely. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to write about what that word is. Our first show, the theme was comfort, and we had a wide range of pieces.
Very fitting.
Yeah.
Kind of similar in the sense with Write Club, where yes, it's two opposing topics, but the topics go way.
Oh, and half the fun is seeing how
you tie that word in. Like,
Yeah.
where does that come in with comfort? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So wait, where were we? What were you asking me?
Topics. You
right,
you
yeah.
give the prompts, and I guess they send in their work.
They send in their work. We give them a due date. We ask them to send. They don't have to send us a synopsis, or they don't have to send us they don't have to send us the finished piece. We ask them to send us like a 200-word synopsis, just to help us curate the shows, so that we don't have two people writing about the same thing,
Right.
or
Especially if they're talking about current events that
Right.
are very topical. Like everyone wants to write about this, and like we can only have half the show about that. We want
Sure.
to have some variety.
right. Or if we have, all prose or all poetry.
Right.
We want to put a good mix in there.
Good.
Yeah, and that's it. We give them 5 to 7 minutes on stage. Although the last show, we really wanted to encourage people who wanted to be on stage but were intimidated by being on stage for 7 full minutes. We made it flash fiction, under 500 words, so you could just come up, be up there, speak your piece, and then get down before you got too scared. And the pieces were amazing. And that was, and I think that is part of the reason why we had so many people who were new to performing at the last show.
And that's a good way to start feeding into better shows and into other lit shows. I could definitely see someone presenting at Blue Stockings a few times and going, you know what? I'm going to take on someone at Right Club. I got this now. Or I'm going to go to another lit show and do that and make the rounds. Because as we all know, it's kind of the creme de la creme at some of these shows where going up against, you don't want to cut your teeth. There's a reason I haven't asked Nick to be at Right Club, because I got to cut my teeth a hell of a lot more than to go up. I wouldn't want to go up against Teresa Davis.
You know what? Now that I know Teresa a little bit, because she read at our first show too,
Yep.
and she killed it. Now that had I never met her, I would say no way. But now it's like it would almost be it would almost hurt so good to lose to her.
It'd be an honor to lose her. Exactly. Well, you know what she did to our good friend Nick DeCosta at the last Right
silence.
Club. Yeah. Well, no. There was
Crickets.
There was one person clapping.
Oh, really?
And it was Teresa for Nick. She's the only one that's how decisively she commanded that audience. And if you're a first time up there and that happens to you, you are crushed and you never come back, but with things like Blue Stockings or Naked City or some of these other places where you can kind of get your bearings about you and then, step to the big, the big league.
I mean, and we're not coddling people. I mean, the whole reason that we offer both safe space and public shows, because we alternate them every other month, is so people can not everyone only feels comfortable being in front of an audience of women, but there are people who there are people who want to talk about things that they wouldn't necessarily want to write about. So you just have the option, if you want to promote yourself to a wider audience, you can go up and you can read at the open events.
Right.
But you always have the opportunity to say what you want in a space where no one's going to give you any shit for it.
Yes. Now, the open show, your first open show is this March the 28th, I believe?
March 28th.
At the Highland Ballroom?
Yes.
8:30 doors, 9 show?
8 doors.
8 doors, 9 show?
I'm going to say 8 doors, 8:30 show, because that's what we've done so far.
But it's a literary event, so so it could be 8:30 show, it could be 9, 10
I will
show.
say, though, that we run a tight fucking ship, and we have been on the nose every single time.
Yes, this is run by women, so perhaps it'll be more punctual and on the nose than perhaps other lit shows that kind of start, whatever. The line at the bar's down a bit. We'll wait a little bit.
I think it might even have more to do with the fact that I'm kind of like a type A super student type.
You're an organizational.
I'm an organizational freak. Yes. And Amy's very kind to put up with that side of my personality.
Well, you need that in an organization. You need somebody to actually.
There needs to be at least
that.
one person to keep the trains running on time. Otherwise, it all flies off the rails, literally.
Yeah, I'm definitely the spreadsheet half of this business relationship. But we complement each other well, I think.
Yes. Now, as far as the open show, this is open for the audience. The stage will always be all women. Is that correct?
Yeah, our show will always. There will never be a cis dude on our stage.
Okay. Okay. Because you can get that everywhere else.
Yes.
I'd see no point in Now, there's been some pushback from people online, some named, some anonymous, about how it's unfair to exclude men in some cases. I'm of the mind that not everything has to be for me. I'm an American white male. I've got as much privilege loaded on my shoulders whether I want it or not. Nothing, has to be absolutely for me all the time, everywhere. But explain more about what you've had to go through to kind of cultivate this type of a show.
Well, we anticipated that there would be some pushback. I mean, we didn't know we we didn't think. We knew that if a lot of people knew about Blue Stockings, then we would get your standard like MRA trolls, I mean, but we didn't think, we thought that would be way down the line. So we were surprised to get pushback so early
was
on in
almost
the process.
immediately.
Yeah, it was before the first show.
Yeah.
And then when, well, I'll get to that in a minute, but I think, and I was surprised by the pushback that we got too. We had some people who were friends of ours who didn't understand why they were being excluded. They looked at it as them being excluded, when that really isn't. I mean, Amy and I agonized over the verbiage, "no men allowed." We tried every combination of words because that's not what we wanted people to take away from it.
Right.
The way that we see it, I guess. I joined. Okay, so I recently joined in the last couple of years. I joined an all women's D&D group at my school.
Oh, cool.
And and it's awesome. And the vibe was so totally different from anything. And I'm our friend Bernie. I'm in a D&D group with him, and it's awesome. Like, I love playing D&D with him. I'll play D&D with him until the day that I die, or he dies. Probably he'll die first.
If he rolls a 1.
He rolls a 1, yeah. But just it was like letting all of the air out. It was like not having to suck in my gut anymore, and I didn't even realize that I had been doing it.
Yeah.
People didn't talk over each other. Everyone knew how the game was played. All the things all the stereotypes you'd think about girls and D&D, none of that applied. But everyone, and it wasn't even that people were polite. It was just people were getting genuine joy out of each other's characters, and it was just an easy environment.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had to prove anything, and that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy playing games with my male friends, or that I'll ever stop, or that, or even that I enjoy this more. It's just that you don't, when you are in a room, when you are a woman and you are in a room with other men, it doesn't matter whether they identify as feminists or not. It's just the way society is set up. The voice in the room will default to male, always. And that's why the safe space shows are so important. That even if you're not actively being a problem, it's still infringing on the right to speak freely.
Just your presence there changes.
It changes the vibe,
the atmosphere in the room,
right?
So that some people will be more hesitant to be more truly themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, and there are people who have reason to be afraid of men in the audience. And even though you might never do anything to hurt them or say anything shitty to them,
or they know that you would never do that.
Yeah.
I get that. And there are some women that have been, treated brutally, attacked brutally, raped, abused, and stuff like that. And maybe their thing isn't hanging out with guys.
Well, and
so
also
much.
let's talk about trans violence in this country. I mean, it's not men get to do everything. And literature, the center of literature, the literary canon, it's male. Like, you don't need to put your voice in this. These are people on the margin who want to be closer to the center, and you're not helping by showing up when they don't want you to show up. So, I mean, there are millions of women's organizations everywhere, and nobody has a problem with it. There are millions of other types of organizations.
That's how I took it, because when I heard it, I went, oh, I would have liked to have gone to that, but I get it, because not everything is for me. Well, I don't go into the women's restroom and go, this is for me. And I don't go, where I'm not wanted, because it's not for me.
Well, and we have shows where men can show, and we hope that they will. They'll come and support. And, if you're that, to me, when you say, I deserve to be here, because I'm an ally, or I deserve to be here because you can't discriminate against me, that to me, it indicates that you're not listening, that you are derailing the conversation by making it about you instead of listening to what these people need.
Right.
And a lot of people just don't get that. And we had one guy who called the theater for our second show and complained and tried to have us shut down. And we almost didn't keep the venue. We had to really scramble to keep the venue because one guy was offended because he thought that since he identified as an ally, since he was saying I'm an ally, that earned him the right to be there where he wasn't wanted or needed,
And way to be an ally there.
Yeah, that's not.
That's
If he was a true ally, he would understand and realize.
Or even if he didn't understand, he would respect.
yeah.
Well, he did come back and apologize because a bunch of guys got on. He posted this publicly on Facebook, and a bunch of guys went on, and they were like, "Dude, you're not listening. You need to chill out."
As much as I hate the term, check your privilege,
Right.
definitely comes into play there.
So he came back and he apologized. He apologized on the Facebook page, and then he emailed us and apologized privately, and we appreciate that. But he still didn't quite get it because when he emailed us, he apologized, and then he offered us suggestions on how we should run the show to avoid offending men in the future.
Oh, gee. Wow. Okay.
So, and I get that the apology was nice. It's nice that he came around, that he didn't, I wish that he hadn't tried to get us shut down, know, but to me, I don't think that he really gets it yet.
He evolved a little bit, not quite there yet.
But that's another, and that actually is another reason why the safe spaces are important, because when you are talking about sensitive issues, or when you're putting yourself out there in an arena that's traditionally male dominated, it's like people of color are constantly having to explain white privilege to people. It's exhausting, and that takes up a lot of your energy as well. You can't be in the moment if you're constantly on guard about having to educate people or stick up for yourself.
Right, there's a shorthand in the female-only shows where you don't have to explain things. You don't have to do that extra bit of, here's what's up with that. It's known.
It's just a non-issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I think Dan would agree. Privilege is kind of like the air. Sometimes you just don't notice it. You're just breathing. It's going on.
Yeah.
And
you only notice it if it's not there.
You're not sitting there, I'm privileged. It's just you having that privilege, whether you want it or not. It follows you.
What we have to do is not abuse it and not realize, we have to realize that it's there and try to ignore it in a way. You know what I mean?
Recognize it and know that, oh gosh, I'm benefiting here where perhaps I shouldn't, or it's tough.
Or in our case, listen and realize that we're not singling you out. We're not saying you, Michael, are a shitty dude and we don't want you at our show. Because it's not,
Well, I am a shitty dude, but I'm coming to your open show anyway.
You'd better.
Yeah. Well, the last Right Club was all female, and I gotta say, I put that up there in the top 3 shows that have ever happened at Right Club.
Oh, the last year's Dames show was amazing too. They always are, but it's it's the same thing as Women's History Month, Black History Month. We have it because we need it, because it's lacking in the rest of the months of the year.
Right.
Right. I mean,
someone was bitching and moaning about, like, it was National Women's Day, and guys were going like, gosh, how come there's not, well, first of all, that's pretty much every day, but it's in November. It actually is a day, so shut the fuck up.
I did not even know that it was.
Well, that's like when I was a kid, like, gosh, there's Mother's Day and Father's Day and Grandparents' Day, and when's Kids' Day? And my mom came back, every day.
Yep.
And that's when's White Male Day? Every fucking day. So shut up. So where do you see Blue Stockings going in the future? You've done 2 shows, you got those under your belt, you got the first open show coming up later this month. What goes from there?
Well, first and foremost, we want to reach more people. We have a lot of people showing up in the audience, but we are eventually going to run into the same problem that a lot of the live literature shows run into, which is you run out of writers. And a lot of that is a failure on our part. I mean, Amy and I, one of our weaknesses as producers is that we come from a predominantly straight white writing space. And when you do that, we don't know how to reach writers of color. We don't know how to reach more trans writers. We know that they're there. We know that they're out there. But so reaching out and making people understand that they're welcome and that we want to hear their work, and we want to make sure that other people hear their work is step number 1. We have no idea how we're going to do that. We're working on it.
I would think maybe writing workshops or non-performance meetings of the Blue Stockings Society? Like, hey, maybe that's an idea, something where someone's in the audience like, I don't have stories to tell, but I'm not a writer. Maybe, maybe something that just gives them the confidence to maybe write something that normally they would like, I'm going to stick in the audience, I'm not going to do this.
Well, we have talked about skill shares, writing workshops, but the problem with that is that there's only two of us, and we both are. Amy is gainfully employed, and I'm a full-time student.
Right.
So it's working around our schedules is kind of tricky. But we've started a compiling a library of feminist writings. That's something that we're working on actively. We have some leads on theater projects. Pairing playwrights with actors is something that we're looking into for the future. And
we happen to know a couple of female playwrights, right?
We
here.
do.
Yeah.
Several, yeah.
And I guess just expanding the website. The zine thing, we do a zine every other month. We'll have one this month. The first one I thought was great. This one should be good too. It remains to be seen whether that's going to be sustainable. So we're trying a lot of stuff. Part of the idea behind the zine is that a lot of the terminology and a lot of just like hearing about feminist literature, gender theory, things like that. I'm benefiting from my super expensive liberal arts education, but not everyone has access to that.
Right.
So we try to, in the zines, we try to reprint excerpts from really important works of theory that we want everyone to be able to have.
That gives the lay person a vocabulary to express these ideas or to talk about them.
Or even just that this exists. I mean, I didn't know that this exists. I've read some pieces of theory since I went back to school that have radically shifted the way that I view interactions with people, like where I sit in the world. I mean, just mind-blowing stuff that I never would have known existed had I not gone to this specific school. And I probably, a lot of liberal arts colleges, students aren't even getting that because they aren't going to a liberal arts college that's focused just on women.
Right.
So, I don't know, just trying to share those resources, I think, is really important.
Giving other people some of the, just a modicum of the benefit that you've had at Agnes Scott, because they're not going to go there, or maybe they're not going to go to college at all, and you can, hand down a little bit of what you've learned to kind of give them a basis.
Yeah, this stuff should be accessible for everyone, because you don't, I mean, we all know from arguing with relatives about politics, if people are set in their ways and they know you, like there's nothing, no amount of shouting at each other is going to change anyone's mind. But every once in a while, if you read something that's detached from yourself, something that's presented well, and some part of it sparks something inside you,
right?
Those are the beginnings for change. Those are the beginnings for enlightenment.
Well, that's the catalyst that I find is about the only thing that allows, for lack of a better term, we'll say Republicans to change is, the gays are the worst. The gays, they're destroying the world. Oh, my son is gay. Hold it. I know him. He's okay. Now I've changed my mind because it happened to me. So now seriously, that's the only thing that gets them to change.
Most of the time, yeah.
As long as it's your son or daughter that's gay, they're the worst. But now that it's mine, like, oh, I personally know him. I can vouch for him. He's an okay person. Wow. I guess that, and it shines a little light on a situation in a way that they'll believe it. And sometimes little bits of, articles or works or public performance. Who knows? There may be someone who comes into one of the shows, whether it's the mixed shows or the female-only shows, that will have their attitude changed about something because somebody is sharing a piece that takes a situation that they thought they had locked down and turns it on its head and go, wow, okay, got it. Because just because, they're at a Blue Stockings show doesn't necessarily mean that they're cool with the gays or cool with transgender people. But by seeing them up there or hearing the work that was written by them, they can go, okay, that touched me. And it starts a process, a dialogue, if not with other people, then with yourself in your own head. And it opens you up a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully it'll change that their attitude that from the gay people and the trans people to just being people.
Right.
People, yeah.
People, you know,
Yeah.
People are universally awful and great at the same time, and
well, people wreck everything. Cool.
Yeah. Well, people are the worst.
Yeah.
They are just the worst.
Now let me ask you, what does the name come from?
The name is an homage to a 18th century literature salons that these upper crust white women had. They threw just so they could talk about literature, talk about philosophy, talk about intellectual issues. And they were kind of doing something unique for their time. But we wanted to, when Amy wanted to pay homage to these groups, but she also recognized that they were also all rich white women because it was the time,
Right.
So we flipped it to BLEUX to be sort of like DEUX, like the second iteration of it, to kind of pay homage to the first one while still acknowledging that there's work left to be done and we want to improve on the original model.
It has evolved from whence it came.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, who doesn't like a secret society? I like the whole, I wish we had decoder rings and.
Well, you go
hey,
ahead. There's no reason why you shouldn't.
I was just saying, I could hook you up with the manufacturer. We got enough design. Hell, you could design. You're a design pro.
I did our logo.
Oh, and it's great.
Thanks.
I think we're gonna use that for the graphic for this show, and showcase the artwork. Yeah, because you post every once in a while some of the stuff that you're working on, or here's some things that I found from when I was 10 years old. I'm like, I can't even do that good now, and I'm a fully grown adult. Damn. Well, I just suck at art, so.
If only I enjoyed drawing more.
Well, you do enjoy it. You do. Well, you enjoy when it's kind of like writing. I hate writing with a passion, but I love it when I'm done with it and go, wow, I did that. Whew,
Who said that? I hate writing. I love
having
written.
Oh,
yeah.
that is a quote from somebody. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'd probably, I would say, Dorothy Parker, maybe?
She did say a lot of.
She had a whip smart attitude there. Actually, she gave a review to one of Harlan Ellison's books before she died.
Really?
Yeah, he treasures that. He treasures that because she was out in Hollywood trying to do stuff in Hollywood, and he was out there writing for The Flying Nun or whatever it was back in the early '60s.
She did. She wrote one of the lesser Hitchcock films. I think she wrote the screenplay for it. Yeah, she and her second and then third or fourth, she remarried him, her husband that she had divorced and then remarried.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would really like to see a biopic, not necessarily just of Dorothy Parker, but of the Algonquin Round Table.
I'm surprised there hasn't been one.
There has been.
There was. Jennifer Jason Leigh portrayed
Yeah.
Dorothy Parker. It didn't quite capture it was more Dorothy-centric, which that's great. I mean, I would love to see another Dorothy-centric thing, but I want the Algonquin.
Yeah, you need
the whole thing and the origins of the New Yorker and all that other stuff. That whole period was very, very rich.
Have you read Marian Mead's biography of Dorothy Parker?
No,
because that's I would say it's like 70% Dorothy Parker, but 30% that whole the Vanity Fair and New Yorker crowd, and it's really good.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It's called What Fresh Hell Is This?
Fresh hell. That's pretty much the way that Harlan answers the phone sometimes. What? That's pretty much it's alluded to there. So what are some of the current I don't want to say necessarily feminist writers, but writers that are female that you and Amy are looking at as people that would be members of the Blue Stockings Society in spirit, like authors that relate to your ethos for the, something that's currently going on, like her, that kind of thing.
Currently, man, I mean,
or in the past, either one.
Currently, I think Kelly Sue DeConnick is definitely a Blue Stocking in spirit. She writes Miss Marvel and Bitch Planet.
Did you say Bitch Planet?
Yeah.
I love that.
Have read that.
Bitch Planet.
It's good. It's really good. I mean, every woman in comics right now, Alison Bechdel would probably be a Blue Stocking. I'd like to think that Bell Hooks would be a blue stocking if she could.
Yeah,
She's a
okay.
hero of mine. I recently got into Octavia Butler. She was the patron saint of our last show, and I feel like I really, I feel like I'm a missed connection. Like I feel like I lost the opportunity to have a great friend in childhood because I never. The only reason that I heard about her was I was looking up something about H.P. Lovecraft for a paper that I was writing, for the Rat Queens paper that I was writing,
Wow.
and I read her name as an alternative that was suggested for the World Fantasy Award trophy, which has been in H.P. Lovecraft's likeness up until 2015 when they finally were like, no more. But he was also notorious racist and really hated women. So, but you can't. They had two black writers win the award, and they were like, "What? You want me to take home a statue in the likeness of this?" Like
This notorious racist,
and it's tricky because you have to separate the work from the person, but to a certain degree. I mean, there are a million. Are we saying that H.P. Lovecraft is a better fantasy writer than like any number of people? He was hit or miss.
Well, he was his own thing.
He was
for
his
sure.
own. He was his own
You
thing.
can't compare him to Asimov or Ellison because it's not that. It's
Right.
a totally different.
But Octavia Butler was suggested as an alternative, and they got rid of.
Did she win for It was for Kindred, wasn't it?
She won. I don't know if she won. Oh, she must have won the World Fantasy Award. Otherwise, why would they have suggested her? That makes sense. I know that she won a MacArthur. She's the very first science fiction author to win a MacArthur fellowship.
Genius Grant.
Yep, very first science fiction writer. Not first woman, not first woman of color. Like first science fiction writer. Period. To win a MacArthur fellowship.
And you know who discovered Octavia Butler in a workshop and encouraged her and guided her throughout much of her career and was a very, very good friend to her?
Who?
Harlan Ellison.
How about that?
Yep. He did more for science fiction writing than I think any living person right now because he released Dangerous Visions, and I think it's called again Dangerous Visions. And he went to these writers and said, I like the cut of your jib. Write me the piece that nobody else will let you, Omni will not publish it. Write the thing. Make it as graphic, as non-graphic, whatever you want, and I'll put it in this book. And it's a landmark of science fiction literature of the 60s and early 70s. And he, as much of a reputation he has for being, shall we say, grouchy, very, very generous with his time for writers where he sees there's, they've got some talent. And, Octavia Butler was very, very shy and just kind of like, not putting herself out there, and Harlan encouraged her and got her, helped her along, and she turned out to be one of his best friends and one of the greatest writers that he had a small hand in getting out there into the world.
But even so, though, I mean, I grew up on science fiction and fantasy, and I never heard of her. I mean, when you think of Frank Herbert, like Isaac Asimov. You think of, I never heard the name Octavia Butler because if I had, I would have, because I wanted female role models so badly in that, because that was what I was interested in. I mean, I wanted to be a cartoon or a comic book colorist when I was growing up, but it just didn't. And now everything's digital, so fuck that.
But
I'm
sure some people are still old schooling it a bit, but not many.
Not the mainstream,
not many.
No.
Oh no, nothing that.
Not the big two. No,
not at all.
But I mean, but this is that's kind of what I mean when I talk about the canon. Like, she's not considered the canon for science fiction, and she really should be.
Yeah, I don't know the name. I'm sad to say.
I mean, you've got your A-listers. You have Asimov, Heinlein, and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Then there's some B-listers like Roger Zelazny, which I think should be A, but he's kind of B. And then there's everyone below that, in my opinion, in some cases, are better than the A-listers. And I think Octavia, at least as far as popularity, would be in the under B, but should be in the A as far as,
But popularity might just be because she's not in the canon. People don't ever hear about her. Yeah. I mean, I would have read everything. And the thing, I mean, the whole idea of Afrofuturism is really interesting and really different. I mean, because it's taking something that's established and sort of flipping it. Which is really important.
Alternate revisionist history of the stuff like Philip Roth, and I love that stuff. Man in the High Castle, very interesting concept. Are you familiar with
Man in the High Castle?
Yeah.
No, I've never read it.
It basically posits that America lost World War II, and North America is divided up between the new Reich or whatever, all the way from the eastern coast to the Rockies, and then on the other side, it's Japan has control over it. And
I feel like there was a Marvel What If.
There probably was, yeah.
But I like stuff like that. There's another one where where the Jewish people were not given Israel, they went to Alaska. Which seems weird, but it just posits all these different things, like because you look at history and like if that one thing hadn't happened, it would have allowed the bad guys to win this battle, which could have turned the whole war, and you could extrapolate from there what would have happened. And I like that kind of stuff, and Octavia did a little bit of that, so.
Well, going over to the science fiction thing, let me ask you, do you feel the landscape is finally starting to change a little bit with writers and directors and the films that they're finally making? Is it tangible, or is it still, I know there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, it's still a boys club, but I mean,
I think so. I mean, when I think of the difference just from the stuff that I read, stuff that I was new. I mean, I keep going back to comic books, but that's because that's what I read the most of when I was a kid. I mean, just the way women are depicted in comic books and the number of women working in the comic book industry.
And how impractical their outfits are for fighting crime. Really?
Well, but even just the scope. I mean, I would like to see more women writing superhero comic books. I think that's going to be one of the slowest lanes to change.
And fighting the Gamergate-like mentality of people who, like, you can't write Captain
You're
America.
You're not a real geek.
Yeah, that stuff is really scary. I mean, that stuff is scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
Well, yeah, when it comes off the internet and forms into actual threats of violence, like, we're talking about literature and comics here. A woman writing, how is that? I don't get why are you so angry about that?
I think depictions of women have come a long way. I think that we're not moving fast enough, definitely, as far as like representation is concerned.
Right.
Like Rat Queens is one of my favorite comic books. I think that's one of the most like pro-woman feminist works to come out in the last like 15 years. But it's written by a guy, like, and the guy, and they're doing things right. Like, you can't fault a dude for wanting to write a comic book about amazing women.
Yeah.
But, are women not writing these comic books because they don't want to, or because they don't think they can, or because
they are and nobody's picking it up.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
the thing.
And that's an interesting, the guy that illustrated the first half of it, Rock Upchurch, man, I love his illustrations. He beat his wife and they dumped him immediately and hired Tess Fowler to replace him temporarily, and then they switched to another guy and then brought back Tess Fowler permanently. But he brought on a woman who had gotten harassed really bad by her mentor in the comic industry. So I mean, like, that shit happens all the time. Some people, you got one guy doing this comic book who's trying to kind of even the score a little bit, but I still think that it's a systemic issue.
I mean, I would like to have an experience where I go see a film and go, wow, that was really great, and then find out afterwards, like, oh yeah, a woman did that. I thought it was great. I didn't have any opinion going, in thinking, all right, let's see how a woman does it. Just enjoy a film and go, hey, they gave a shot to a woman. Thank God, it's about time.
The two best episodes of Doctor Who last season, if not the two best of the series, were directed by Rachel Talalay. And it's like, can she just do them all? She was so good. I mean, Heaven Sent.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a better episode, and it's all her, and she started.
It's just a fluke, Dan.
Yeah, it's just a fluke.
It's just a fluke.
Yeah, it's not like she's been doing genre films since the early '90s with Tank Girl and stuff like that.
Oh, she did. Tank Girl was one that I thought of. I was trying to think of one where I was like, "What's an older movie where
And it was Rachel Talalay. Yeah,
that's it." And the thing that's really different about Tank Girl is not that she's like a badass, because you get a lot of that. I feel like that has become a trope where if you're going to have a strong female character, she has to be like an ass kicker, or it's
the-
not believable. And like, but I mean, the motivation was not over a guy in that movie, and that was huge in and of itself.
So it passes the Bechdel test.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And Jet's cool too. I mean, like Jet she
Yeah.
has a great story arc, and I thought the movie was honestly, I think the movie's better than the comic books. I read all the comic books, and they're a little.
There was a Jet film?
No, Tank Girl.
Jet Girl in the movie.
Oh, and
Yeah.
you're talking about in the Lori Petty Tank Girl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Jet Girl was played by Naomi Watts. If you watch, I was like, oh my god, that's like
Yeah,
Naomi
with
Watts.
black hair and
black hair and a glass.
Yeah, she doesn't seem too kick ass to me.
she gets there by the
gets there
end.
by the end,
But the whole thing with her is her arc is she becomes she gets assertive. She stops being a doormat. And like that's her, and it's just a very interesting, but it's like it's another woman who like shows her how to do that.
The thing I really got a kick out of involving Tank Girl is that it had been released in America, and I was in London going to Portobello Road because, hey, I saw Bedknobs and Broomsticks, so I want to go to Portobello Road. There's significantly less dancing on Portobello Road in reality than there is in the show. But anyway, at the entrance to Portobello Road was a big-ass pink tank. And it was promoting Tank Girl. And there was a Lori Petty lookalike up there with a machine gun, just like going, And I thought, now that's some innovative marketing there. And then walked right by it and got harassed by a Scottish guy who wanted me to keep buying him a drink. But that's a story for another podcast.
Wow,
Portobello.
that got weird for a second.
London,
Yeah.
London was wonderful. You got the Portobello Road, and then you've got the Tate Gallery, which is literally my favorite place in the entire world. Oh, I love that place. So, getting back to Blue Stockings' first, I guess, integrated event. For lack of
Jesus.
putting it into historical context there, the all are invited show. What
We call them open audience shows.
open audience?
Yeah, they're not bussing people in.
We're going to integrate this show. We're going to get the women from over there and the men from over here. We're going to make them sit there and we're going to watch a damn lit show. What can people who have never been to a Blue Stockings show expect, male or female? I mean, this is the first open show, and we'll walk in the place, and what?
Well, we will probably be selling zines.
Good.
Now, just not to cut you off, explain the zine.
So the zine is just if you are.
Is it a physical?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I lay them out in Photoshop myself, and if you know that you don't want to read on a stage, or if you have a piece that doesn't fit with the theme or the word count limit, you can email it to me and I'll put it in the zine.
Nice.
And
Oh, that's great.
So it's giving
Okay.
another avenue. Like,
Yeah.
I want to put my work out there in a way that I'm most comfortable with.
oh yeah, I mean
and-
in the secondary goal, aside from giving writers a place to perform, our secondary goal is just to promote their work. So anytime anyone gives us something that they want published, we'll take a look at it, do like a very light copy editing, and then post it on the blog. And share it. And you might have seen some of those posts, but those are our website is not even searchable on Google yet, and just the writing posts alone have driven us up past 1,000 hits in the month that the website's been up. So
Nice. Because the individual writers can say, hey, and pass the link along to their
Exactly.
friends, and they tell two friends, and
Right.
so on and so on.
So yeah, and the zine is just a kind of a hard copy version of that. And we also take if you want to draw something, we'll put that in there too. And usually I'll put in I'll go through my my textbooks and I'll find something that I think is relevant, and I'll print an excerpt of it. The last scene, I had a long excerpt from Compulsory Heterosexuality and Lesbian Existence, which is one of the best essays I've ever read. I highly recommend it. Adrian Rich. And we had Kate Bornstein is a trans woman, an excerpt from her novel, Gender Trouble. That is really important. I think everyone should read as well.
Good deal. So now, as far as how the show is presented, is it is the writers queued up in a certain order, or
Yeah, I mean we'll curate the show. We we haven't curated this show yet, so we don't know who our lineup is going to be, but we'll, we try and arrange them in a way that makes sense for the pieces that they're submitting. Everyone gets 5 to 7 minutes. We'll have an intermission in the middle, and usually we do a raffle. We'll raffle off books,
nice.
or I think this month we have books and artwork. We have a hand-drawn portrait of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And
Notorious RBG.
Notorious RBG, and her autobiography. It's either an autobiography or biography. I haven't looked at it yet. It's being donated.
The one that's called Notorious RBG?
No, I don't think so.
Because there's a political commentator. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. She's fabulous, a pundit on MSNBC. But she...
It's not Rachel Maddow.
No. It's... oh, gosh, if I heard her name, I'd remember it. But I've admired her work for a great many years. But that's her baby. Notorious RBG was, writing about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And you might want to look into that. That's I'll get that name for you.
I think there's a free RBG coloring book that you can download off the internet.
Nice.
I might print some of those off. We'll have an RBG package
Good.
that we're going to raffle off. It'll either be a raffle or we'll have RBG trivia. So if you want that shit, you better bone up on your RBG trivia ahead of time. So we'll do that, and then Two halves. We'll have 4 and 4 with an intermission in between.
You gonna have the borrow the WCA time timer?
No, I'm telling you, tight ship. Like we it's all respect, all respect for the rules. Keeping that shit together. It's good.
Keeping it tight, like Roadhouse.
Yes.
You're nice until it's time to not be nice. Get off the stage. Excellent. Well, where can people go to find out more about Blue Stockings and this event coming up?
The best way to contact us and get information on the show is on Facebook, where you just look up Blue Stockings Society, BLEUX Stockings Society. Mm-hmm. The public Facebook group, you just like it and you'll see all of our stuff. We post everything that we post on the website, and a link to the website are also there. And there's also a link to the private group. So if you are a woman, cis or trans, or a non-binary person, you can click on that link and request membership. And that once you're in that group, you can see the prompts. And that's where we hold discussion. And we, Amy and I, crowdsource a lot of stuff. Like we fucked up our verbiage first thing, and so we put it to the group. Like, well, how do we fix this? How do we not be shitty white feminists? Like, how do we do, what would you like to see? Like, we definitely appreciate the advice that we get. And that's a place where people can have their voices heard and kind of directly influence the show and how the show runs.
Good. Excellent. And the first open event is March 28th,
Monday.
At the Highland Ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that is 8 o'clock doors.
At
8:30. Open bar.
Open bar.
Cash bar.
Yes.
Let's make that very clear.
It is a big difference.
Hold it. I want to go to every show now. There's a free bar. And what is it? Is it 10 at the door?
Yes, it's 10 at the door.
10 at the door. And do you guys do advance tickets, or it's just straight 10 at the door?
No advance tickets yet. It's just at the door, and all of the proceeds go to pay for the venue. Anything that's left over, we donate to Planned Parenthood.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yep. Our first show, we raised, I think it was about $230 for Planned Parenthood at the first show, and then a little over 200. Yeah, about the same at the second show.
Good. Yeah, I've already made it up in my head. If I ever step on the Right Club stage, it's going to be Planned Parenthood forever, and until that's not an issue. Which, knowing this country and how ridiculous it is, it'll be an issue for my children and your children and children's children forever.
All of the children that we're having because we can't access birth control.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, hey, I will protect you when you're in the womb. But once you're born, get a job. How come you had a kid? It's like, I love Republican thinking. Anyway. Well, Ellaree Yeagley, thank you very much for stopping by the underground pod bunker and talking to us about Blue Stockings Society. And we will see you on the 28th at the Highland Ballroom.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
And hopefully it'll be smooth sailing from that point forward.
We'll see. I hope so too.
Yeah.
But if not, we'll be prepared.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
The 9 Billion Names of Pod was conceived, written, and performed by Michael Reed and Dan Bauman, with Abdul Beni Hassan as the sound of splintering wood. Research, transportation, and exasperated looks by Courtney Lohner. Technical assistance by Cubase, Pro Tools, Skynet, QLab, Deep Thought, Big Brother, and Eddie, your shipboard computer. Financial consideration provided by the Wayne Foundation, Stark Industries, the Piranha Brothers, and LexCorp. Legal counsel by the Office of Howard & Fine. Not everything is for you. Our intro music is written by Tim Akers. This podcast was sponsored by Deep Shag Records and is a production of Audio Primate. Throw us a couple stars on iTunes, why don't you? Check us out on dadsgarageradio.net. Listen on SoundCloud, stream us on Stitcher, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or email us, comlink@billionpod.com. And until this happens again, I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Ellaree Yeagley.
I'm Michael Reed.
LOZ!
Audio Primate.